Miscellaneous minds, never explaining the minds. Devilish grin for my alias, aliens who respond. Peddling sin, thinking maybe when you get old you realize I'm not gonna fold or demise. I don't smoke crack, motherfucker, I sell it.
Winner by majority decision, and now the unified, undisputed world champion, Artur Beterbiev.
What is going on, everybody? This is the Miscellaneous Minds Podcast. I'm your co-host, Boom Gato, the cat that hands your undisputed title back. And to my left over here is the main man who's standing over the man that makes the fat stacks. Together from the dynamic duo that won't die, deadly ideas, brother, and spicier content than your girls' only fans.
What is going on, everybody? Before we get into tonight's topic, please make sure to like, comment, hate, subscribe, DM us about the bullshit, and with that, let's get right into it. So we had an undisputed title fight tonight, 175 division, light heavyweight division. We had Artur Beterbiev going up against Bivol. And listen, I'm sure you guys have already seen, obviously, there was a lot of controversy as to who won. Artur Beterbiev ended up taking the title. We had originally picked Bivol. I think to a lot of people's agreement, a lot of people believe Bivol won. Now, listen, I'm not here to make excuses. If I'm being honest with you, after watching the fight, I actually watched it twice. After watching the fight, I do think that the fight was very close. And if it would have been called either way, I would have been okay with it. If it would have been Bivol's way, I'm like, okay, see, I was right. It went the right way. And if it didn't, I also agree that it could have gone the other way. Here's what I think people are kind of mistaken. There was a few points where, yes, Dimitri Bivol definitely had some good flurries in. There's a couple rounds where it looked like he was slightly more active than Artur Beterbiev, but the entirety of the time, Bivol would do 1, 2, and even 3 hit combo, and then, get on his bike and kind of jog around. And here's the thing, I'll be honest with you, I've never been a fan of that type of fighting. I know a lot of people are going to bitch and moan about this, but my thing is, you're a boxer. You are a combat fighter. To go in there and dance around for such a long period of time, to me, it's boring. And listen, I made this point to my bud here when we were discussing before we jumped on to record this. Fighters like that, fighters that pick spots and run, pick spots and run, pick spots and run, put them up against another pick spots and run fighter, no one would tune in for that shit. And I'm going to reference De Los Santos versus Shakur. They were both playing the game of, no, you go first. No, you go first. I want to counterpunch. No, you go first. It's boring. It's boring. And I think that was Bivol's demise tonight. I think, yes, there was moments of activity, but those moments of activity only came when Beterbiev pushed the action. And then in some of those moments, Beterbiev pushed the action. Bivol got a good, and he landed good stuff, good flurry, good combinations. Beterbiev responded, and then, again, Bivol would get on his bike because he didn't want to confront. And listen, I get it. Beterbiev is a stronger fighter, the more powerful puncher. So I get why you wouldn't want to engage him in that faction. But I was hoping a lot more of a engaging fight like he did against Canelo, like he did against Zurdo Ramirez. He was the one leading the charge. He wasn't the one leading the charge tonight, and it didn't do him any service. Again, he lost. That being said, some people are calling this robbery. Personally, I don't think it's a robbery. I think even though I personally picked Bivol to win the fight, I think especially in the later rounds, Beterbiev was more active. I feel like he landed the much more tougher shots. If you guys go and watch the interview after the fight, not immediately after, but the press conference afterwards, even Bivol admitted that a lot of the punches were getting through the guard. And in fact, if you guys look, I believe it was his left eye. It was pretty fucked up. All right here was clearly bruised, clearly swelling. So even Bivol said, yeah, a lot of his punches were getting through the guard. So there was a lot of deceptive punches that to the crowd, and I'll even admit to myself, looked like it was caught on Bivol's guard, but it actually went right down the middle, got him perfect. So I think it was a tough fight to score. The 116-112 card, that was insane. It wasn't that far apart. I told my man here, if it would have been a 115-113, that to me would have seemed fair. Overall, I think, personally, my belief is, I believe Bivol won it by 2 rounds. I believe it was that close. But listen, I'm not mad at the decision. Like, I can see why the judges could have given it. I believe it was that close of a fight to where it could have gone either way. I think Bivol landed what looked like the cleaner shots. I think Beterbiev landed the more powerful and striking, more effective shots. So I really think that Bivol, and I'll say it for every single fighter that does it, Bivol getting on his bike didn't do him any good. If I'm being honest, that's one of the things that I did tell my buddy here, that I'm glad that for the first time in a very long time, the one that got on his bike and ran didn't get the decision. Because if you look back at history, generally speaking, the one that gets on the bike and runs, unfortunately, is awarded the decision. And to me, that's not boxing. I get it. Paulo Malignaggi, I watched his analysis of the fight afterwards. Paulo Malignaggi said the game is hit and don't get hit, right? Hit them, but don't let them hit you. Here's the problem. Again, go to any fight where you put up two of those fighters that like to dance around the ring. It's not going to be anything that people are going to tune in. You need people to want to tune in, and people want to see fireworks. I'm not saying go in there and rock 'em, sock 'em, robots that shit, but I'm saying you got to be more active than he was tonight, and he was not that active. Again, he'd have a few good-looking rounds, right? Get a few good combinations. That was it. And again, I'm even willing to say that I feel like Bivol, again, I said it a couple times, won the fight by 2 rounds, but he didn't do it looking good. You can't do both. You can't dance around the ring and just hope to coast. And if that's your mindset, I told this to my buddy earlier. If your mindset is I'm gonna put it in the hands of the judges, you lost me. You already lost. Because you're hoping that they're gonna give you something. You're not going in there to make a definitive statement to say I won. And that's the thing. Beterbiev was in there to make a definitive statement. Now don't get me wrong, Bivol made it hard for him because Bivol was, again, 1-2-3 combination, and then got on his bike. 1-2-3 combination, then got on his bike. So it wasn't easy for Beterbiev to make the statement that he wanted to make, but I feel like he was in there more to make a statement, whereas Bivol just wanted to win. It wasn't about making a statement. It wasn't about saying, I am the undisputed champion. He just wanted to go in there and win, whereas Beterbiev was, in fact, trying to make a statement, which, again, if you look at the way that they were fighting, it's easy to tell. Bivol started being the bully, I'm going to say, 7th round and on. So I do believe that Beterbiev was definitely trying to make a statement. And I know, generally speaking, Bivol takes the early rounds, Beterbiev takes the later rounds. I know. But as the fight went on, Beterbiev started, looking better and better and better, and Bivol started fading. In fact, I pointed this out in the 11th round. Didn't seem like Bivol wanted to be there. Bivol seemed like maybe he took the round off, but in the championship rounds, you're going to take a round off? Dumb. Go back and watch the 11th round. Bivol didn't do anything. Yes, there was like maybe twice where he threw a combination. That was it, though. Beterbiev manhandled him. He bullied him in that round. So, again, I personally had Bivol winning just barely, but the fact that he was never really the one pressing the action, he was never really the one wanting to engage. What he did with a lot of the other people that he faced, he bullied them. Bivol did. And this, I guess, kind of proves that he was only able to do that because of his weight. If he was on the same level of playing field as was Beterbiev, he can't bully them. So I think that he found his weakness. Someone that's the aggressor, someone that pushes the action against him. He got bullied. And by the right man. What do you think about that, my brother?
Listen, I don't like the narrative that anybody makes a statement that this fighter robbed the judges, that this fighter was able to sway the judges in with their performance. And look, man, whenever you leave it in the hands of the judges, the only best thing that any fighter can do is give the best performance that they can. And if they can't, for whatever reason, knock out their opponent, maybe their opponent is just better, maybe they just didn't perform that well in the fight. The fact of the matter is, if you leave it in the hands of the judges, it's out of your hands at that point. Anything that you do in that fight, whether it's to the best of your ability, maybe you just couldn't do it, maybe you just couldn't give the best performance, maybe your fighter was just that type of fighter that you couldn't get the knockout or get the submission in, if we're talking about MMA. Maybe you just couldn't do everything that you could do within your power to secure the fight, and that's where the judges give their best impression of the fight. Whatever they decide is out of your power at that point. Whatever they decide, it's in their best interest. Now, I understand everybody has their controversies about the very infamous 116-112, but not so much the fact that it was a draw for one decision and a 115-113 for the other fighter. The only big problem is just that 116-112. And I will agree with you, that is a very controversial call. I'm not going to deny it. If you want to give the impression that Bivol looked liking in 2 rounds at best, okay, fine, I'll give you that. If you wanted to give the impression that Beterbiev was liking in 2 rounds, okay, I can give you that. But to give the impression that Bivol was liking in 4 rounds is disingenuous at best. But I'm going to give a controversial opinion right here. I do think that if it was a split decision, and if it was a split decision in favor of Beterbiev, people still wouldn't have been happy with that. Bivol was the favorite going into this fight. And I understand Bivol was the fan favorite, especially after his win over Canelo Alvarez. I understand that the fight that he had afterwards, if you'll remind me who that fight was against. If not, that's fine. But I understand after the win after Canelo that Bivol was the favorite to the fan favorite, I should say, to win the undisputed at 175. And I understand if he didn't win that, people were going to be disappointed no matter what was going to happen. If it was a split decision, I have no doubt in my mind, people were still going to be salty about that no matter what. But I do think the 116, 112 was at least disingenuous at the very least for that judge, because it couldn't have been that bad for Bivol to give those performances. I would think at the very least, at best, it was a razor split decision for Beterbiev, in my opinion. At worst, a draw. But look, it seemed like for the most part, and again, I want to bring up something you brought to me because I do think it was a very good point. No matter what Bivol threw in the middle rounds, because around 4 to, I'm going to say, round 7, round 8, those are probably the best rounds that we've seen out of Bivol during this entire fight. Afterwards, it seemed like it was kind of waning in favor of Beterbiev. But in those rounds where it looked like Bivol was looking at his best, when he was throwing out those flurries, it didn't look like, if I was a judge, it didn't look like it would have phased Beterbiev whatsoever, because no matter what Bivol had thrown in those flurries, Beterbiev was always advancing. Bivol was always advancing on the back foot. He looked like he was, for the most part, always defending, looking for a counterpunch, and it looked like no matter what that Bivol threw at him, Beterbiev always looked to be on the advancing foot. No matter what Beterbiev would have thrown here, he still looked like the aggressor for the majority of the rounds. And look, whether you have your problems with the 116, 112, I understand that. I have some problems with that too. But during the entirety of the fight, Beterbiev looked to be the aggressor during the fight. And look, make all the judgments you want about the old saying of never leave it in the hands of the judges. I understand. It's a controversial statement. I understand why you have problems with that. But if I was a judge and I was honestly judging it from what I've seen in the ring and the fact that Beterbiev was always advancing, going on the forward foot during the entire fight, why wouldn't I judge it in favor of Beterbiev? Why wouldn't I judge it for the fighter that's always advancing no matter what blows are being thrown at him? Controversial as it is, yes, that 116, 112 is a garbage call. But if it was a 115, 113, would we be having the same discussion? And that's the crux of what I think people have the problem with. It's just that one bad call. But my thing is, if it was a closer call, but it was in favor of Beterbiev, would we still be as enraged as we are now?
Listen, man, I think you're right. I think people were going to complain even if it was a 115, 113, which would have been closer. It would have matched the other judge that scored at 115, 113. So I agree with you. I still think people are going to complain. I think people, because of the popularity that Bivol gained after fighting Canelo Alvarez, he became a little bit more of a household name, right? Because he faced, such a big fighter. After that, people started getting enthralled with who Dimitri Bivol was. So I agree with you. Even if it would have been closer, people would have complained. Again, listen, go back and watch the fight. Again, I watched it twice before I jumped on here. The fight was close. Personally, again, I do see the argument for Bivol winning by 2 rounds, so 115, 113 in Bivol's favor. With that being said, listen, Artur Beterbiev was absolutely the aggressor the entire fight. Artur Beterbiev seemed like he was wanting to engage a lot more than Dimitri Bivol. Bivol wanted to win. He didn't want to make a statement. And to me, when you're going for all of the belts, when you're becoming undisputed, the first undisputed in the 4-belt era, you got to make a statement. And Bivol didn't do that. It was a great fight. I'll be honest with you. I'm going to agree with someone that I never agree with. Clarissa Shields said this first. I don't think the fight lived up to the hype, but I think, if I'm being honest, falls on Bivol's shoulders that it didn't live up to the level of hype that we all got around it. But hey, it is what it is. It was a good fight for the hardcore fans. The casuals probably weren't super thrilled with it. Nothing explosive happened. Nothing, a jaw-dropping, eye-catching. But it is what it is, man. We'll see. Rematch, I believe, is highly likely. We'll definitely see how it goes. It'll be interesting. And with that, make sure to like, comment, hate, subscribe, DM us about the bullshit, and
Until next time, get rest and stay blessed. We'll see you in the next one.